First, as presented, I see we have invoices for approval and a notice of motion outside of, I'll call it the electronic kit. Is there anything else that we wish to add to the agenda? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the agenda? Well, first of all, it's moved by Councillor Wall, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor say aye. Contrary minded, the motion is carried. First item of business today would be the council meeting of the minutes of August 27th. I would accept a motion to have them accepted as presented, moved by Councillor Stoyles, seconded by Councillor Aker. Are there any errors or omissions? Errors or omissions only? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Business arising from the August 7th meeting. Any business arising at this point in time not going to carry over into the regular business of today's meeting? Going once, twice, moving on. We have no proclamations or presentations today, Council. We also have no correspondence today. Our first will be our Public Works Committee meeting, and I'm going to call on Councillor Walsh as chair. The floor is yours, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Be very brief in keeping with the proposed brevity of the meeting. We'll see.
Yeah, we will.
Stay tuned. The update on the automated garbage collection system, Your Worship, Phase 1A and 1B are relatively quiet, which is a good thing. Means things are going well, and I have gotten an opportunity to see the 1B just once, and that was the second time there was a scheduled collection. But almost every day that there's a collection in 1A, which is the Mortimer Drive phase area, I've seen that, and I have to say I continue to be impressed by that. As you know,
I'll stop you just for a second. Has anybody on council received even a phone call, a complaint about this thing, or any
I did
challenges?
The first week or two, I did, Your Worship, as we launched each of the two phases, and it's probably I received the complaint because...
Well, it's your committee. We blame it on you.
And I think some of the complaints at that level were directed to me only, but they were very few. There were a handful of complaints.
I haven't heard anything negative.
In the last month, I've received nothing.
Nothing at all? No, I haven't heard much negative. Councillor Stiles, to that point?
Since you asked the question, I received a number of complaints. Lindbergh Crescent, a number of people called me there, and the director had...
But they're not even there yet.
No, they're not there yet, but they have heard about it, and they're concerned because they're in, row housing.
Row housing,
and that as well,
oh yeah.
And they did call.
No, I appreciate that we've had a number of inquiries from people about things, including, by the way, I've had an inquiry from people who are saying, how come we're not yet? And I've had the same inquiry you had. No, I was focusing on the two areas that we currently are doing it. Are we running into problems, and have we heard from anybody complaining about that?
No, we haven't.
It's good news if we aren't.
Yeah, no, it is good news, and we were anticipating that it would drop off, but the fact that we're not hearing anything seems to suggest that the problems or the fears or the anxieties that were there, at the very beginning have been pretty much resolved. One of the things, Councillor Strauss, that you might be interested in, of course, was the fact that in 1B, which was the Farrell Drive, Nash Crescent area, where there is quite a number of duplex row housing assemblies there, that was the greatest ambivalence on the part of the residents, and that subsided very, very quickly. And the biggest problem for them, again, related to where am I going to put the cart. It wasn't about bringing it to the curb. And so far, and I know we're far from winter conditions, we've been enjoying a fabulous summer, but so far we haven't had any problems with cart tipping or vandalism or any of that sort of thing, knock on wood, and that's been a very, very good thing. The last meeting, as you know, we awarded a tender to Saunders for the acquisition, I think the assembly, and also the distribution of the carts. So that will be scheduled for September and into the late fall. One of the things that we're interested in being a little bit proactive with, Your Worship, on this is implementing and developing really a cart buddy system. One of the few concerns that I think is really genuine is the fact that in some cases, not unlike carrying 2 or 3 bags of household garbage to the curb, but in cases where you have very elderly or disabled or aging adults in the house, getting that cart to the curb, particularly in winter conditions. So what we're trying to do is establish a fairly well organized cart buddy system. It is in place in some other jurisdictions where they have this system utilized, and so we're trying to sort of flesh that out a little bit and promote that as much as we can. And speaking of promotion, the communication strategy with regards to the full implementation of this will have a number of different components. It will include advertising on the website, in Mount Pearl Matters, which is our section in the Telegram. We will be providing door knockers with information and on the automated system, which will include scheduled start dates and also some information on how the carts should be used and placed at the curb. We'll be using our traffic commerce for the digital sign messages. We'll also have physical signs. We're thinking about 8 different signs to be allocated at key locations coming into the city where people will see them, and other locations within the city. Various public service announcements using the media, and of course our social media, Twitter and Facebook accounts, and also we are looking at some magnets, but it seems like we'll probably use something a little different from that. The cost of the magnets for widespread distribution seem to be a little bit prohibitive, and I'm not sure that it would be all that practical, because this is actually a fairly simple and straightforward placement of the carts. Whereas with the recyclables, I know you and me and others have probably gone many times to the fridge to say, where does this fit? Where does it go? What, that sort of thing. So with this, it's a little bit of a different thing. So we're on schedule. As I said last time, we're on budget. This communications piece is the latest strategy that's being developed, and we'll be talking about that again to sort of flesh out the final details at our next meeting. So
really
the
good.
project is going well, and we're on schedule and on budget. We can't ask for much more than that.
I would like Councillor Walsh, if you can, through Public Works at some point, tangential to this is the whole issue of how our recycling is actually going. What kind of a community take-up are we currently enjoying? There was a point at which I think we felt we were probably matching or exceeding percentages per capita for the nation. We were doing really well. Mount Pearlers were buying in. I don't know if they are buying in as much today. Do we have any numbers to show us?
I don't, but that's a really interesting question and observation. I think for all of us it would be beneficial. I don't have any numbers either, though, that suggest that it's declining. Diversion rates throughout the entire Northeast Avalon seem to be on the upswing, because more and more communities are coming on stream and using at least the fiber recycling, if not into the plastics, etc. But I'll see if we can get that information and try to provide that at maybe the next meeting if we have them readily available. But if not, as soon after as we can. My
fear, and I will express it to all of council, my fear is that once we use an automated cart system for the entire city, the ability to discard garbage which should be recycled with no concern becomes pretty prevalent, because you can put it in a green bag and you put it in a green container and it goes in the back of a truck and nobody visually observes it, whereas today you really can't do a whole lot of that because it's usually under a net or something that people open up and they see it. I want our rates to obviously go higher and be higher. So I think that would be a good test for us to have a look at where our numbers are.
And we'll provide that information. But I think the most important thing, and I think Deputy Mayor Locke has referred to this, and as well as other members of council in the past, is that's changing the mindset and the education piece, the attitudes. I think more and more people are becoming more environmentally conscious and aware, and they want to step up and make sure they do. More and more people are taking it upon themselves to recycle even water now and composting, those kinds of things. So I think we're turning a corner in terms of the attitudes and the education piece, and I think that's going to be the enforcement piece, or the big stick will only have minimal impact for short periods of time. I think if we can change the attitudes, it'll have a greater effect over a longer period of time. So we'll get that information for you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Look forward to seeing that. That's it for Public Works, Community Services Committee. Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a short agenda today. We received a request from Admiralty House and Museum and Archives. They requested the second and final installment of their 2012 operating grant, and we are recommending that we issue that amount of $250,000 to Admiralty House Museum and Archives, and I so move.
Moved and seconded by Deputy Mayor. Question or comments? All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carries.
I almost moved 250,000 then. You
Not
hear
bad,
that?
hey.
Should pick that up.
They'd love you
Should
at the
pick that
museum.
up.
They'd love you at the museum.
Oh, that's scary. The Director of Community Services is requesting to attend the Athletic Business Conference and Expo 2012 in New Orleans from November 28th to December 1st. And of course, that does fall under his personal development and our personal development policy, so I so move.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
We have a couple of letters complimenting our city staff, and we wanted to share them with council and certainly with the public as well. We received a note of thanks to the City Days Committee from a major sponsor of Mount Pearl City Days, the Atlantic Lottery, whereby they recognized the many hours and the hard work that went into planning our event this year, and we want to certainly join with them and congratulate our City Days Committee as well. Krista Tucker, I know, does a tremendous job as our staff person on that committee as well, so we want to join Atlantic Lottery and thank them and congratulate them once again for such a wonderful City Days event again this year.
Absolutely.
And another note of thanks, the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of St. John's actually touched base with us to thank us for our diligence in providing a safe atmosphere for all the vehicular traffic and certainly the pedestrians during the Holy Sepulchre Mass that was held in July. They also wanted us to extend our congratulations to the municipal enforcement officers for their support and their assistance. And once again, we want to join with them and do that as well. Our municipal enforcement plays a really important role in the city of Mount Pearl, and sometimes we probably don't realize all that they do. And I believe that the numbers going to this Mass exceeded 10,000 people or more.
I would say
Say more than that.
Yeah.
More than that.
So when you look at that, that's, that high number of people in that small area, and to know that our municipal enforcement officers played a very key role in making sure that that was a safe, well-controlled area. I mean, that's just wonderful. So again, we want to join with the Archdiocese of St. John's and congratulate our MEOs for their great service, of course, to the city of Mount Pearl. And two other items just for your information. The Pearlgate Track and Field, the line painting is done. The field is now complete. It looks really good. You've got some pictures there in your kit to show you how good it looks. Looks really professional. And the Ruth Avenue basketball courts, look at that. City of Mount Pearl colors on the court. It looks really, really
I never
good.
noticed that it's the City of Mount Pearl
It is the
colors.
City of Mount Pearl colors.
Yes, boy.
In fact, this is the court that we had talked about resurfacing now for quite some time. It was on our agenda. It is done. It looks fabulous. And I personally would like to see this be the template for any outdoor blacktop upgrading that we need to do, because with the blue and the orange, it looks really, really sharp. It's identified. It puts our stamp on it. And I just think it looks absolutely wonderful. Absolutely.
Excellent.
A little cheaper.
That's very, very good.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. But anyway, it looks really good because those are the touches that you don't need to have. Like, we could have very easily gone in and just painted it and lined it the way a basketball court should be lined, and that'd be the end of it. But it just makes it look so much more special and characteristic, and it's ours.
It fits with our theme, our tourism strategy. It fits with what we intend to do in that area. So we not only have to have a multitude and a variety of recreational sites for both active and leisure time recreation, they have to be the best, look the best, feel like they're the best, and that's the kind of thing that'll achieve that.
And this court is open to the public.
Yeah.
There's no league. You don't need to be a member. There's no signing up. You just grab a ball and,
And
go
go play.
Go play.
Okay.
I just had one. Sorry.
Go ahead. You're next anyway. I
A
think.
youth up at one of the stores loved the court, but asked if we could get chain nets because he finds that the cloth or the rope nets tear a lot. And he indicated that there were no nets up there, but when I drove by, there were nets up. But he said they're short-lived. And his suggestion, he said, I don't know if you can pass it on to the powers that be, but he said, in other jurisdictions where they have the chain nets, they would last much longer. And I don't know what the cost would be, so I said I would certainly
I wouldn't think that would be significant.
certainly pass it on, right?
Although I've heard
Probably
the
sample
other way,
too.
where there's chain, they usually like the rope nets, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I just throw it out there. If it's something that we can look at, if they're being torn on a rapid basis, maybe that's something we
Yeah,
can look into.
something to
Anyways,
look at.
pass it
Okay.
on.
I thank you, Councillor Tessier. We're moving to corporate services. Deputy Mayor Locke
One
and
quick
Mr. Councillor Walsh, your alternate today. In Mr.
Sorry, Your
Ledwell's
Worship.
absence. Go ahead.
Okay, one quick item here, the invoices for council approval. It's been revised from what's in our kit. We have 13 items here, and the total is $573,369.28. And I move that the amount be accepted as presented.
It is moved, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Are there any items council wishes to discuss or refer to? Councillor Aker. Oh, I'm sorry. I had Councillor Ledwell in there. I don't know why. Let me apologize for that.
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Aker, not Councillor Ledwell. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I don't know how I ended up doing
And
that, but anyway.
you can see that most of it is our retrofit for automated garbage service. But one of there is Stanley Flowers Limited. I got to say, the flowers and the pots around the city, they're just absolutely beautiful.
And somebody commented just this morning.
The colours are,
I hear from Holy Rose.
yeah, me as well. And I know our crew again went around, and the streets and the islands are swept. And I got to say, it's really nice coming into the city with all the colours. So it's great to see.
It's good.
Yep.
Beautiful. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. That concludes corporate services, planning and land use. Now, Councillor Aker.
Councillor Ledwell
It is
here.
Councillor Ledwell is not here, and the deputy mayor will be the alternate. I'll get this right eventually.
Thank you, Your Worship. First item pertains to a lot of land adjoining 34th Avenue, the lot's vacant. The homeowner or the property owner has asked if they could put a single dwelling on the property. Unfortunately, council has to refuse this request because the lot really is not deep enough. It doesn't meet the front line setback of 7.5 meters, nor the rear depth setback of 8 meters. Just a little history here. We did in the past, I think, in the last couple of years, turn down a duplex for the same piece of property, much for the same reason. So we're basically it doesn't meet our standards and our regulations, and we're forced to turn this down, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Aker, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. Question or comment, anybody? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
The next item, Your Worship, a little piece of good news and a little congratulations to Mr. Harold Fleet. He's the city's cartographic technician. There's a new high school geography book. I guess it's also called social studies, I guess, in the profession, and dear to the Deputy Mayor's heart. Yes.
Will you really?
If you turn to
Yeah.
page 212 and 213, you will find a map as it relates to land zone and land use. And it's a City of Mount Pearl map. And we'd like to thank Harold for working with the publisher of the book. The book is known as Encounter Canada. And we are profiled on page 212, 213. I'm sure that in the Deputy Mayor's class, if it comes his way, they'll spend hours on that one particular page alone.
What grade would do this? Level 1. What we'd call grade 10.
Yeah.
And because some of the questions that they have listed on Stretch Your Thinking, I guess, which is something they do, I read the questions, and I got to tell you, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. There's a real understanding of things.
So I'd like to ask the CAO if she could pass on to Harold our compliments on a job well done. Thank you for profiling us in the book. The next item, Your Worship, is a notice of motion. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move an amendment to the text of the City of Mount Pearl open-air burning regulations that, if enacted, will, in Section 2, add the following definitions in alphabetical sequence in the existing list of definitions. Aerial fireworks means high-hazard fireworks as described in Class 7, Division 2, Subdivision 2 of the Explosives Regulations under the Explosives Act of Canada. Family fireworks means low-hazard fireworks for recreational, commonly referred to as consumer fireworks, and as described in Class 7, Division 2, Subdivision 1 of the Explosives Regulations under the Explosive Act of Canada. Fireworks means fireworks is classified in the Explosives Regulations under the Explosives Act Canada and include family fireworks, aerial fireworks, and pyrotechnics. Pyrotechnics means theatrical explosives as described in Class 7, Division 2, Subdivision 5 of the Explosive Regulations under the Explosive Acts Canada. In Section 2, I believe that's 2.1 or 2L, amend the definition of open-air fire by adding to the end of the existing definition and includes fireworks. That's the text, and includes fireworks. Immediately after Section 5, add the following section and renumber the remaining sections in sequential order. So Section 6 would read fireworks. 1. The selling, displaying, and discharging of fireworks shall comply with the Fire Protection Services regulations under the Fire Protection Services Act, Newfoundland and Labrador. Aerial fireworks and pyrotechnics are not subject to Section 5 of these regulations, but shall be submitted to the Fire Commissioner or Fire Chief of the St. John's Regional Fire Department pursuant to the Fire Protection Services regulations under the Fire Protection Services Act, Newfoundland and Labrador. This is Part 3. Notwithstanding Section 5, family fireworks shall be permitted to be discharged from dusk to 11 p.m. on the statutory holiday known as Canada Day and on the day commonly referred to as New Year's Eve, December 31st, without application to the Chief Administrative Officer. The discharge of family fireworks on all of the days of the year shall be in accordance with Section 5 of these regulations. The purpose of the proposed amendment is to regulate the use of family fireworks. And that's it for that notice of motion. And there's a second notice of motion, Your Worship.
The bureaucrats are busy.
We get to, we will get to comment on this at the time of debate, will we?
That's right.
I wasn't paid by the word, but I'm sure somebody was. The second notice of motion. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will at a regular meeting of Council move an amendment to the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 1988 that, if enacted, will: in Section 2, definitions, amend by adding the following definition in alphabetical sequence in the existing list of definitions. Designated mobility impaired parking space means a parking space designated for motor vehicles used by persons with a mobility impairment. In Section 9, off-street parking and loading regulations, amend by adding the following section after Section 9.3 and renumber the remaining sections in sequential order. Section 9.4, designated mobility impaired parking spaces. For any development where parking spaces for persons with disabilities are required pursuant to the Building Accessibility Regulations under the Building Accessibility Act, such spaces shall be provided on the basis of one parking space per lot or 4% of the total number of required parking spaces provided on the lot, whichever is greater. And such parking space or spaces shall be designated and marked in accordance with the designated mobility impaired parking regulations under the Highway Traffic Act, Newfoundland and Labrador. The purpose of this proposed amendment is to clarify the requirement for designated mobility impaired parking spaces. And seeing we're on motions, I think I'll pick up the one out of the kit, Your Worship. It's
Yeah,
the third
the one outside.
This is a breeze, this one. In accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988 and or the Urban and Rural Planning Act 2000, take notice that I will, as per direction of Council, recommend to issue an order at a regular meeting of Council that, if enacted, will require the property owner of 1281 to 1283 Topsail Road, BRS Holdings, to remove machinery from the landscaped front yard of the property. The purpose of the proposed order is to provide Council with the authority to enforce the removal of the machinery from the landscaped front yard of the property.
Thank you, sir, so much. You do have a couple of other items there?
Yes, Your Worship. The development permit list, as well as the building permits. This is for the period August 6th to 17th. Permits numbers 47 through 51 are here, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Akers, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
All right. For the same period, Your Worship, the residential building permits are $1,288,700, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
Commercial are $458,800, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
And I'm finished. Thank you.
We are back then at the end of that. Thank you, Councillor Aker. We are now going to new business. Last week we started with Councillor Ledwell, I believe. This week we're going to mix it up a little bit more. You want to start first, or will I go down this line?
I'm going to defer. Councilor Teskey wants to talk about the girls under 12 mega, and you had the floor.
Councillor Tessier, new business.
Well, yes, as
Why do I feel like Councillor Aker is bragging about
a
something?
little bit. The girls under 12, the Mount Pearl girls under 12 minor soccer team took gold this weekend
Yes.
in the provincial mega tournament that was held here in Mount Pearl.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm told through Councillor Aker that the game was decided through points, through penalty shots, penalty kicks. So that's pretty exciting. So we want to congratulate the girls under 12 for this fabulous accomplishment with this particular tournament.
Good for them.
Also, AIM is Fame. The mural jam happened last week. So anybody who drives along Old Placentia Road and they look at the construction site for the multiplex will now see these beautiful, colorful, tastefully done graphics, murals that are painted on that wall. That's something that I know that I had somebody here from Halifax this week, and we took a drive by, and she commented on it. And she thought it was really innovative that we would actually arrange it and encourage it and bring in the artists to do this. Because, you know, the walls are probably going to get tagged up anyway. This way they're done in a respectable manner. The graphics look really great. The murals are beautiful. And it's going to prevent anybody else from really going and spraying over it because, you know, they respect the work that's been
were
done.
these all kids who did this? Because I never got to see. I was out of town
I
the
didn't
day
get
it
to see it
happened.
either.
Was it all young people? I hate to say, you know.
Yeah, you were
kids,
there.
but
Go ahead.
You were there.
I popped up, and I think Councillor Ledwell was up during the day too. So Gary Fraser arranged it all, and there's a young fella, you know, somebody in his late teens, early 20s. His name is Mark. That's all I'll say. He's out in St. John's. He organized it on 3 weeks' notice, and I was talking to young gentlemen, because there wasn't very many young ladies there, but young gentlemen from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Sydney, St. John's, Montreal, and they all had a ball, and they really love to do this. It's all, you know, it's all the art for them. And they don't really care if that board's coming down in 2 years' time. It was that moment of creation, and as Councillor Tessier said, you know, it leaves the city with such a nice look and feel for the next year or two.
I have to say, I was quite impressed. I really was. Blew me away. It was really well done.
And the thing is, depending on how it lasts throughout the winter, I mean, if next year it needs a touch-up, then we may
Do her again.
clean it up and do it again.
Absolutely.
Who knows? What's that?
We just paint it white and let
That's
them do
Paint
it
it
again.
white, let her go again. And also, Arts in the Park just finished their final summer stint, I think, last night. That's been a wonderful event for the city of Mount Pearl over the summer. I know that last week the weather didn't agree, and they just moved the event inside, moved it into City Hall. So it was great. So I want to congratulate AMP for doing that. It's a great series. I know they did it last year as well. And let's hope that this continues.
Yep.
That this is a tradition for us, and certainly as the square becomes more developed and more mature, and if we manage to get the roof lifted on the gazebo, it'll be just a fabulous setting, continually.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
that is it for me, sir.
Deputy Mayor, new business.
I just have one thing. I was going to mention the murals as well because I too was out of town, but just give a nod to the sponsor, I think, was the paint shop. Just wanted to publicly acknowledge them because I do believe they provided, I forget the dollar amount, was it, in the paints. Anyways, there's a substantial amount of paint. Pardon me? Ackland's Granger as well. So just to tip our hats to the corporate sponsors who came forward because, again, it does look fantastic. That's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
you very much. Councillor Stoyles?
I just have a couple of things, Your Worship. Like for us to send sympathy notices to a couple of people. Bet Froud, who lived on my street for the past 40 years or more, passed away. Actually, Bet Froud, Elizabeth Froud. Bet won the lottery 2.5 weeks before she died. And, she won the lottery on the 24th of July and died the 8th of August. So it was really sad for the family, 59 years old, so it was really tragic, just dropped out of a heart attack. So, and also, Your Worship, Ern Sims, the Mayor of St. Anthony, lost his son this past week, 30 years old, also dropped out of a heart attack. So I'd like for us to send letters of sympathy to both of those families. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh?
Just one quick thing, Your Worship. I received an email from a resident of Bad Place, and what happened, basically, the crews were going up there to just line the the streets where there's going to be some sidewalk replacement, or I think it's mostly curb and gutter. And I have to say, the staff of Public Works were really, really excellent in responding and coordinating the effort. The concern was simply this. They had saved for a couple of years to repave the driveway, and they just had it done this summer. And a week or 10 days later, we're up marking the street, and they're saying, "Oh my God, don't tell me they're going to come in and actually
Cut this up now.
cut this up." And that's exactly what would have been the plan. So what happened is that we had some people from Public Works look at it. They've been talking to some other of our staff in engineering, and I think upon closer examination of the piece in front of their door, in front of their home, in fact, as luck would have it, because there's more luck than good planning for sure, the curb seems to be in good shape, as is the case in a number of other areas. And I think the plan is to try to bypass the areas that are still good. I mean, why do them if you don't need to? But sometimes it's actually easier to go in and just wipe it out and,
Just wipe it all out.
do them. So while we really appreciate the understanding and the cooperation of our staff in sort of rectifying this one-off, it also sort of highlights maybe the need for us to perhaps, if we could somehow let people know a year or so in advance that your area is scheduled for curb replacement in 2013 or whatever the case may be. It may prevent some situations like that from happening, because all properties that are being upgraded, the infrastructure and the pavement and the lawns and everything on all the properties is no different than the infrastructure that we're upgrading, that it does run down after a number of years. So in this case, they were a fairly young couple that had been saving for a couple of years. It cost them $3,200 to replace the driveway, and they didn't want to see it torn up. So it might be a little bit of a healthy reminder for a little bit more advanced notice.
That's really quite a good idea, and I think we can do it. I had an email, I think Council has seen it, from a gentleman in Donovan's Industrial Park. Dana O'Day actually responded for us, and he was inquiring about street upgrading in his area. And we were able to tell him, here are the streets, and here are the dates.
This is when you're scheduled.
I don't, maybe we should be able to do that and be a little proactive on the advance notice, particularly for residents, because I know on my street it happened, right? And for me it was, I knew, so it was lucky. Do your driveway when they're coming to do the street, that sort of thing, and it all worked out. But anyway, I have a look at doing that. I think we'd be endorsed doing like that if we can. That's it for everything today. I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Tessier. We stand adjourned.